Good morning. Welcome to Tip Off. Hope you're doing well. Sorry we didn't get one to you yesterday. As I've said the whole time, I don't think we'll be able to do them every day, but we will be able to get you them. I always do this first thing fidget. Hope everyone's well. You can catch it on YouTube as well. Facebook, David Locke has exceeded 5,000, so I can't add any more. So everything will have to be done on Locked On Sports now. Thank you very much. I've never thought about that when we built this whole thing and started it off, that we could ever reach some maximum number. A bunch of different things on tip-off I want to talk about today. We'll touch on the Jazz. I'll update you on the number one question I keep getting for everyone. But I think there is an enormous story. And this is a little bit of negative Nelly, but I really think this is an incredibly large story. I think it'll be underplayed dramatically, but in my opinion, it's the single most important story. And it fits into a category of that I talk about a lot, which is, and really it's another person's idea, if we isolate individual stories, and this happens, and then we wait 14 months and something else happens, and we're able to isolate each one, then we don't think it's such a big deal. It was described to me once on a political standpoint. If you take a big huge poster board and put every headline of a certain president together at one, then you really understand what they're doing rather than just one at a time. The other way maybe to explain it for all of our lives would be, you got that bad relationship you're in, and while you're in it, you justify every individual isolated incident as an isolated incident, and you move on. And here's the story. University of San Diego's, so not a big-time school, but the University of San Diego's all-time leader in points and assists. Okay, so one of the greatest players to ever play at the history of this school has been indicted in sports betting and basically point shaving. This is the kind of story that should stun you, concern you. I believe, with no proof at all, that this is completely rampant inside collegiate sports. And the issue that we kind of touched on Twitter yesterday, and you can follow me at Locked On Sports if you're not already, is the idea that at some point some of these college players are going to have to get paid. One of the reasons these college players are going to have to get paid is frankly, if they're not already, is that they're down on their luck. Their financial situation's tough, and they are so vulnerable to point shaving. And if it's being done at the University of San Diego, holy smokes. The story, the indictment includes this kid, Brandon Johnson, the all-time leading scorer, Thaddeus Brown, who was an assistant at the school, and Brandon Dowdy, who played at San Diego from 06-07, and then he transferred to the university, and 7 others. So all the details are not out yet. Johnson, by the way, is in the D League right now, so that will make things a little bit interesting. But these are big-time, serious allegations that took place. And what I think you've got to realize is, if you start going back, we're having one of these maybe once every 2 years, and it's got to be concerning. Just think about it from a really simple standpoint. Let's take the University of Utah, for example, last year. If you played for the University of Utah at a very early moment in that season, it was clear you weren't going to win anything, and that you didn't have a chance to go to the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16 the way BYU did. So now you get into February and March, you can't afford things, and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'm not asking you to do anything you wouldn't do anyway. Can you make sure that you lose by the spread's 7 tonight? Can you make sure you lose by 11? Kid gets a few grand. He gets 2 or 3 guys in. They're each getting a few grand. Why wouldn't they do such a thing? And I think that's something that you really got to be very, very concerned about in collegiate sports. And that's why, as much as anything, but the NCAA doesn't want to, they need to pay players. But the NCAA doesn't want to come out and talk about that, because that does get the credibility of the sport. But that league is so vulnerable to it. Just that simple scenario I just gave you at Utah. The other scenario, which is even easier, is most kids in college, unfortunately, are betting on football, right? Just NFL. Well, let's say a guy's short, has a bad season. Happens. I haven't seen a lot of hotels be torn down in Vegas. And he's short short 1,500. So he just alters one game to get it even. And that bookie makes a killing on it. It's too easy. Gambling is too rampant, and the players are too susceptible to it. And that's the number one issue in NCAA has to be addressed. And this story today out of the University of San Diego, I think will get undercovered, but should probably get more covered. In regards to the Jazz, that's a solid performance last night. You got to like to see that. I'm a huge believer in the culture. You got to keep playing hard. You got to keep playing well. We've been on the edge at times of wondering how these guys are going to react, whether they're still playing hard, whether they've camped it in. With 9 guys last night, they battled. CJ got hurt and stayed, did his best to stay out there. You like to see Paul has been dealing with some illness and battled through it to play in front of the home crowd. Derek Favors had a 4-play sequence that makes you go buy that 15 jersey again. Really special sequence. He quick move in the post, drew a foul. And it was on Jason Smith, so it wasn't on the top of Emeka Okafor. We'd like, eventually those are the guys he's going to have to start beating. He then, on the defensive end, beautiful defense on a pick and roll, slid over to deal with Chris Paul, got back to impact the shot. Next possession, quick spin move off Smith for a hammer, and then followed it with the next possession with a block of Aaron Gray at the post. So those were good. Gordon Hayward was nothing sensational last night, except for you just look at his box score line at the end of the night, and I think it's like 8 shots, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. I think those rebounds and assists will increase as time goes on, but you're just seeing he's going to be a very solid contributing player at a high level. All right, here's a bunch of the other thing I would say about last night's game. New Orleans looked awful. And I think New Orleans is so much less good than any of the other playoff teams that if they get the Spurs are going to wipe through them in 4. It could have a huge impact on the playoffs because while the Memphis Grizzlies are pounding down low on L.A. and Portland's battling Dallas, San Antonio gets a week rest and then plays the winner of the Oklahoma City-Denver series. And to me, it looks like it will be a fairly I think that's a huge advantage in a lot of ways for San Antonio. In the draft position update, good night last night. Charlotte defeated New Jersey. New Jersey loses again. Simultaneously, Sacramento could not hold on against Oklahoma City, which was too bad. Oklahoma City trailed that one by 10 in the third quarter, and you were kind of hoping that something good might happen there. Jazz got a little bit of a break in Washington, beating Boston. That secures Miami the 2 spot. Miami's going to be the representative out of the East for all the haranguing all year long. Miami's going to be the representative. So here's how it works, and this is a little complicated, and they talked about it on TV last night, and I talked about it on Twitter. As of right now, New Jersey and Sacramento are both 24-57 with a game to play. Sacramento may win their final game. It's against the Lakers at Arco, crowd going crazy. So this may all not matter. But if New Jersey were to lose and Sacramento were to lose, then what happens is on Friday they'll have a drawing for draft position because everyone's got to be slotted. But in terms to the lottery balls, they will have the same amount. They'll just divide the 5th and the 6th pick into an equal amount. Same thing will happen right now. I believe Cleveland and Minnesota both have the exact same record. Minnesota's at 17-64. Actually, Cleveland's now a game ahead. Minnesota lost last night, and Cleveland was able to win in Detroit. So now Minnesota has the number 1 pick. And then also, I think Toronto and Washington were close as of last night, but Washington won and Toronto lost. So it's all dividing out. But if you have the exact same position, you draw for your draft position, and the lottery balls are evened out. All right, that's tip-off today. Hope you're well. Thanks very much for tuning in. Bowler Jack, Locke, and Gerard today. I'm spending the day with my son as a celebration of the end of travel. So Bowler is in today, and tomorrow I'll be back with you Thursday on the radio program. Thanks for tuning in to Tip-Off. Follow at Twitter at Locked On Sports and also Facebook Locked On Sports. Have a good one. Bye, YouTube.